Okay, welcome back to Charles Butler Show. We are broadcasting live on Genesis Communication Network. I have with me Mr. D.A. Jackson. We have a caller on hold. I'm going to get to you in a minute, Matt, but I want to bring D.A. on. Welcome, D.A. Welcome to the show. You know, you and I have been in this situation many, many times before, having worked at WVON and my other radio gigs. I know I could always call on you, because you were right in the mix. That story that I was talking about, the cops driving down the highway, which you investigated that story, right?
Yes, I did, Charles. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
It was a black couple that were driving down the expressway. They were cut off by another SUV, and words were exchanged. And the other SUV was occupied by several off-duty Cook County deputy sheriffs, who, after words were exchanged, the Cook County deputy sheriffs produced weapons and literally shot up this couple's vehicle. So the couple fled, called 911. There were 911 tapes, and they went directly to a local police district in the suburbs and got out of the car and said, hey, these people just shot us up. And, of course, the police version was that they felt threatened, that the couple had thrown something at them. But I took photographs of the car. It was really just a fortunate incident because a tragedy could have occurred, because there was a projectile that landed from the police officer's guns in the visor over the steering wheel. So the young man that was driving the car could have been hit in the head. So it was.
Yeah,
really,
but you know, but again, the police lied. And let me say this. What happened to the police officer? I remember Jesse Jackson coming on TV with his big mouth, again, talking loud, saying nothing. Was this case ever litigated? Did these men, were they ever charged with a crime?
No, I don't think there were ever any criminal charges, if I recall correctly. I don't think there were any criminal charges. I know there was some civil litigation, and the attorney, I believe it was Attorney Andre Grant, who was representing this couple. And I believe maybe one of the off-duty sheriffs may have been terminated or suspended from his job. But other than that, I don't think there were any criminal charges. Not to my recollection.
If that had been if that had been a black officer or 2 or 4 black officers that shot up a white couple's vehicle, they would be in prison.
Yeah, obviously there is a double standard, Charles. And I think the whole Ferguson mess in Missouri is really just a microcosm of a larger problem.
Well, we have a larger problem here in Chicago.
Right. We're just one incident away.
Yep.
From this happening in Chicago. I currently am investigating a number of shootings by police officers, fatal shootings here in Chicago. Have done this type of investigation for 30 years. Initially, I was working for the Corporation Counsel's Office 30 years ago, investigating these cases in defense of police officers. And, ultimately became licensed myself and went into private practice. So, I've got a tremendous amount of experience in this type of investigation and bring, really a unique perspective. There's a lot of emotion surrounding this, but it really comes down to really a couple different questions. Was the victim armed? And was the police officer who used deadly force in reasonable fear of death or great bodily injury? And those are the real 2 basic questions. And in the Ferguson case, the guy wasn't armed. The police have admitted he was not armed. So it becomes really a one-issue deal. Mm-hmm. Was the officer reasonably in fear of his life or great bodily harm? And according to the several eyewitnesses that I've seen interviewed on television, now obviously I wasn't there, but I'm just looking at it from a distance.
Right.
The officer did not appear to have been in reasonable fear of death or great bodily injury. There was a confrontation. The officer obviously was angered or upset to some degree that forced him or made him pull his weapon and fire at this young man. But
look, David, this is the thing that gets me this morning. This morning they said that the guy was shot. Brown was shot 6 times, all front entry wounds. So when I'm looking at, I had the television paused at the autopsy report. He has on the right side of his body, he has 1 shot in his chest, 1 shot in his bicep. Looks like a shot in his lower bicep or upper bicep, and looks like he has an entry wound at his neck, 1 in his eye, and 1 in the top of his head. This man just had target practice. He wasn't being shot at.
The shots to the arm, you really can't. If someone is running away from a police officer,
no, these are all front shots. These are all frontal shots.
Well, if someone's arms are flailing as they run, you really can't, sometimes it's more difficult to tell with the arm.
We're not talking about that, David. These are all front shots. He wasn't. These are not. I don't think the boy was running when he got hit because all the shots are in the front. So that's the point I'm trying to make. You don't know how accurate this police officer's shooting was. What you do know is he was shot in the top of the head, and the trajectory of that shot, according to the autopsy, went down his head, out of his jaw, into his clavicle area. So you have an entry, exit, and another entry wound. That's the wound you see in the clavicle area is the shot that went from the top of the head. So he was either down on the ground, falling forward,
or falling forward.
Yeah.
At the time that shot hit him in the crown of the head, and he shot in the eye. He shot in the right eye.
All I can say is this police officer has no excuse for shooting this boy the way he just gunned this boy down. This was target practice.
There are some very definite questions that the officer has to answer.
You know what, David? I'm looking at this.
He continued to fire.
I'm looking at this, and there is no justification. Absolutely none. The officer's life wasn't in danger. And there's a woman who saw this, who to me is probably one of the most credible people.
Absolutely, I saw the interview.
And
Tiffany Mitchell is her name.
And when I look at how this boy was shot, how he was executed, I mean, I can see how this guy said he had taken target practice. I mean, obviously, and he's pulling to the left. Every time he shoots, he's pulling to the left. So if he was shooting center mass, both his shots
and missing.
Yeah, went to the left at 35 feet.
Right.
Now, what that adrenaline is flowing, I get that. But why? See, what I don't get is, why didn't this boy, first of all, the idiot shouldn't have been walking down the middle of the street. And when the officer told them to move out of the middle of the street, they should have got their behinds out of the middle of the street, their black, ignorant behinds out of the middle of the street. It's that black ignorance that got them in this trouble in the first place. They should have been walking down the middle of the street. That's what they try to do here in Chicago. I mean, why do black people do that stupid stuff? I don't have any idea, but it just gets on my last nerve.
Well, yeah, and it goes to a larger point.
What's that?
Black parents have to educate their sons and daughters.
David. Educate them, but there's right and there's wrong. There's right and there's wrong, David. This ignorance is going on today. This is just, you know what you and I call this off the air. It starts with an N. The first word begins with an N. The second word begins with an S. And that's what this is. Nothing but.
Yeah, well, you have to begin a process of educating these young men and women on how to interact with the police so it doesn't escalate into deadly violence. You know what,
David? That has nothing to do. I'm not going there. That has nothing to do with it. If these two idiots were walking on the sidewalk, talking, drinking the soda, whatever they were doing, Michael Brown would be alive today if he moved his behind to the sidewalk.
Oh,
that has nothing to do with
it was an unnecessary confrontation.
Exactly. That's my point. So all that's just BS to me. The bottom line, if you're doing what you're supposed to do, I can stand with you. If you're not, I got a problem. Look, let's bring on Matthew from South Carolina before we have to go to break. Hey, Matt. He hung up. Okay, sorry, Matt. But go ahead, DA.
Well, there is a larger context here, and you alluded to it earlier. The economics of what's going on in the country. The larger society is now being affected by what the black community has been affected by for the last 25 or 30 years. There is a displacement of labor. A lot of these young men aren't employed. What black men used to be able to do in terms of low-skill work, working as janitors, working as window washers, working as landscapers, dishwashers in restaurants, in hotels, doormen, and laborers in construction, they have been displaced. So you really, and that's kind of the backstory of all the rioting and the looting, and which is crazy. You're discrediting a situation that should be focused on why the officer killed this young man by rioting and looting and that kind of craziness.
But that's who they are. Again, it goes back to that mindlessness that we consider being black today. If we conducted the civil rights movement, and King had to deal with this element in the black community.
He did. Absolutely. It happened in Memphis a week before he was killed. Absolutely.
Yeah. We had to deal with this element in the community, and who wanted to rebuild. But see, if you go protest at the ballot box. How come you got a white mayor? How come you got a white police chief? How come you got 6 white councilmen and the city 70% black? We got Matt back. Let's bring Matt on before we have to go to break. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Hello?
Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Doing good. First time caller. I haven't been listening too long, Charles. I enjoy your show a lot, though. I was taking some stuff on Facebook. But the point I really want to make, and I'm just going to keep it kind of brief because I guess you got a break coming up, but it's really...
I'll tell you what, we got that break coming up now. We'll bring you back right after the break. That's what I promise. We'll bring you back right after the break. Hang in there. We with D.A. Jackson, detective extraordinaire, who worked a lot of these police misconduct cases here in Chicago and around the country. We'll be right back. 800-259-5791. We are streaming live and broadcasting live here on Genesis Communication Network. We have Matt with us from South Carolina. Okay, Matt.
You still there?
Yeah, we're still here. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I just really kind of, I guess the point that I want to make is that, I understand you being a black man and whatnot and have been through a lot of things. But just, like I said, I was trying to say is, I'm whiter than rice, and I've been through the same things with police. I also, I date a sister, and I've also dealt with, basically, outright hatred because, I'm involved in a mixed race relationship. Mm-hmm. And I think that what's really weird is here in South Carolina where I live at, which is essentially where Jesse Jackson came out of. Jesse was here this weekend, and Jesse was involved in when my girlfriend's cousin was killed, that they were basically trying to, basically stir up a bunch of mess over it. And it didn't make for good media for him, and therefore they didn't look like they would have a good court case over it. But then again, he comes back, he was here in town over the weekend and was doing the same thing over this stuff going on in Ferguson, which I don't understand why he wasn't in Ferguson, but, I don't know, maybe Jesse felt a little bit threatened by it. But people like him and Al Sharpton and these other individuals, and I'm not even going to get into the Obama thing, I know how you feel, and I feel basically the same way about him. But but there's no leadership, black or white, the way I look at it anymore. Mm-hmm. The people that have any standing, any scruples, any
integrity,
any ethics, I guess we could put it that way.
Yeah, you're right. I agree wholeheartedly with you, Matt. And you're right. That's why I've often talked about my white friends who've had police misconduct issues. You know, I talked about my friend's 8-month-old pregnant wife, which was pushed to the ground by a San Diego police officer. I mean, uneffing conscionable. These police officers are out of control, and they hide behind. That's what I was talking about this morning. They hide behind that code of blue, that silence of blue. And you've been through it, Matt. DA, you see it all the time. DA, you had an incident the other day in a store where you went in, you had your weapon, and you were sharing that with me. Share that with the audience real quick before we have to go.
Well, I just stopped in the drugstore on the way home from working an investigation to get some Sunday newspapers. And I suppose the bulge under my jacket could be seen by some officers in the store. It was right next door to a police district here in Chicago. So an officer, stopped me and asked me, "Are you a police officer?" I told him no. And he said, "Well, you're carrying a weapon. I can see it." And I explained to him that I own a private detective firm. I was just stopping for newspapers, and I offered to show him my identification. And what he said was, "Well, I don't need to see your identification. You don't look like a thug, so you can just go on." And I explained to him, "Well, you had that authority." I was very non-confrontational, which you have to be with officers, and offered any accommodation I could to him in order to alleviate any fears that I was not carrying a weapon illegally. And the whole reason for that non-confrontational, really submissive approach is you don't want to end up like this guy down here in Missouri.
Yeah, that's right. But, that's absolutely right. But, those are the games that we learn, and that's the duality that we have as black citizens, where, I've had my friends who were on military bases, officers, confronted. I've been confronted myself in uniform, out of uniform. It's a never-ending cycle of police harassment and abuse. And I don't know if it's jealousy. I remember, even when I'm flying my plane. I'm flying a plane, and we leave from L.A., go over to Catalina. I fly my cousins. We come back, and this FAA inspector is there to question my departure sequence. And when I produced my readback to him and said they cleared me for this readback direct to this point, I can't remember the specifics right now. The guy he got all red in the face, and my cousins were like, "Butch, why are you so angry?" I said, "I'm angry because this a-hole, he heard the tapes. He just wanted to give me an infraction, and at the end of the day, he was wrong, way out of line. That's why I dogged him the way I did, and told him, write it up. Let's take it to the FAA to show your incompetence." But anyway, hey, DA, got to bring you back, man. We'll talk about my case. We'll talk about my case when I bring you.